ever-evolving soap opera that is, of course, what's happening over at Royal Lodge.
There is a no-holds-barred, warts-and-all tell-all story waiting to be shared with the world.
The layers of duplicity and shallowness, this is a new low.
What's happened with Andrew losing his title and now her losing Duchess of York, it just proves that the York brand is totally toxic.
The affairs of the royal family tells you that we are living in quite bizarre time.
Is Fergie really finally clearing off?
American television networks are preparing checks with 6 figures on them. Multiple offers are reportedly on the table. And the person they're all competing to interview isn't Prince Harry, isn't Meghan Markle, isn't even a current working royal. It's Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, the woman who lived beside Prince Andrew through every scandal, every questionable association, every decision that led to his spectacular downfall. This isn't about promoting a book or discussing charity work. This is about one single broadcast interview, and networks believe it's worth paying a fortune for because Sarah Ferguson might finally answer the questions Andrew refused to address. She was there during the years his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was taking shape. She lived at Royal Lodge throughout the period when those associations became most contentious. She received money from Epstein herself, maintained contact with him after his conviction, and watched as her ex-husband's life imploded over revelations he continues denying. The palace is reportedly unnerved. Andrew is said to be uncomfortable with the entire idea, allegedly even demanding Sarah keep her distance, despite them still sharing the same property. And Sarah herself is weighing whether to sit down, take the money, and reveal everything she claims to know about Andrew's relationship with a convicted sex offender. If she goes through with this, it could prove more damaging than Andrew's catastrophic BBC Newsnight interview, because this time, the revelations would come from someone who was actually there, who saw things firsthand, who can't claim ignorance about timelines or associations. The question isn't whether Sarah has information worth hearing. Everyone knows she does. The question is whether she'll actually speak publicly, what she might say, and whether anything can stop her now that she has so little left to lose. According to Telegraph reports and multiple media outlets, Sarah Ferguson is actively considering these 6-figure offers. Not for a media tour spanning multiple appearances. Not for a book promotion where she can control the message. One single television interview where she'll be expected to answer every difficult question she's avoided for years. The sum involved is substantial precisely because producers know what they're buying, access to someone with insider knowledge about one of the royal family's most damaging scandals who might finally be desperate enough to talk. Why would networks pay this much? Because the public wants answers Andrew has refused to provide. His infamous Newsnight interview became a global spectacle, not because he revealed anything substantive, but because his denials were so bizarre they became instant memes. The sweating explanation, the Pizza Express alibi in Woking, the claim that he couldn't have been at a nightclub on a specific night because he was at home after taking his daughter to Pizza Express. These weren't convincing defenses, they were peculiar remarks that made him a punchline. Sarah Ferguson represents something different. She can't claim she barely knew Epstein when she accepted his financial help. She can't pretend she wasn't aware of the controversies when she lived alongside Andrew throughout them. She understands the family machinery from the inside, the rhythms of royal life, the excuses that get deployed, the patterns of behavior, the inconvenient timelines that don't match official statements. For television producers, this is ratings gold, a royal detonation, a guaranteed global audience. And Sarah is acutely aware that she needs the money. Her books were pulled from shelves after the scandal intensified. Her speaking engagements evaporated. She's lost the Duchess title in practical terms after Andrew was stripped of his royal status. Both of them are reportedly being removed from their 30-room residence at Royal Lodge by January. She's financially squeezed, reputation damaged, and in desperate need of an image overhaul. This is exactly why she's entertaining these offers, not just for the immediate payment, but for the chance to reposition herself publicly. Palace insiders, according to reports, are quietly rattled by this prospect. Their concern is straightforward and reasonable. Sarah Ferguson has nothing left to lose. She's reportedly aggrieved by how she and Andrew were handled throughout the Epstein fallout. One palace source suggested the real danger lies in the possibility that she might go rogue, that she could disclose matters proving acutely embarrassing, not just for Andrew, but for King Charles, Queen Camilla, and other senior figures. And there's remarkably little they can now do to contain her. It's worth remembering what happened the last time a royal participated in a heavily promoted interview. Andrew delivered an unprecedented calamity that destroyed whatever remained of his public reputation. His Newsnight appearance was supposed to clear his name and address allegations head-on. Instead, it became a masterclass in how not to handle crisis communications. His explanations were so unconvincing, his demeanor so disconnected from the seriousness of the accusations, that the interview itself became evidence of poor judgment. The fear within palace walls is that Sarah might produce her own version of this disaster, not necessarily out of malice, but because she has a documented tendency toward emotional oversharing. The worry isn't that she'll fabricate stories. The concern is that she'll speak too freely, revealing details about private conversations, palace reactions, or observations that should remain confidential. She's never been particularly skilled at maintaining discretion, which is partly why the family has always found her problematic. Any interview Sarah accepts would inevitably center on Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. She cannot avoid that topic. It's literally the reason networks are willing to pay. And the questions won't be gently phrased. She'll be asked why she called Epstein a supreme friend in past comments, why she continued interacting with him after his 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor, why she accepted substantial financial help from someone convicted of sex crimes involving underage girls. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. These are documented facts that require explanation. Her past statements about Epstein placed her squarely within this scandal. She later claimed she only wrote certain positive things about him because he threatened to sue her, but that explanation raises more questions than it answers. If he was threatening legal action, why maintain the relationship at all? The fact remains she benefited from his wealth, connections, and financial generosity during years when his criminal conduct was already public knowledge. If Sarah tries to distance herself from Epstein now, she risks obvious contradiction with her documented behavior. If she defends Andrew's associations, she risks public outrage from people who believe the allegations against him. If she hints at private palace conversations or knowledge about what senior royals knew and when they knew it, she risks sparking an entirely new crisis for the monarchy. Television networks want exactly that tension, the high-wire act of someone trying to rehabilitate their reputation while navigating explosive questions about criminal associations. That's why they're prepared to pay substantial sums. This potential interview is arriving at a particularly sensitive moment. Prince Andrew is currently under scrutiny from the US House of Representatives. The Oversight Committee investigating Epstein's networks requested Andrew's cooperation and testimony about his ties to the financier. They gave him until November 20th to respond. He did not reply. This follows years of him resisting attempts by American prosecutors and victims' lawyers to question him about what he knew and when he knew it. Now imagine Sarah Ferguson going on international television at the exact moment her ex-husband is being investigated by Congress. Imagine her being asked why Andrew refuses to cooperate with investigators. Imagine her confronted with questions about his denials regarding Virginia Giuffre. Imagine her asked whether she believes his settlement with Giuffre was really about maintaining innocence or simply avoiding the discovery process that would occur during a trial. The optics for Andrew would be catastrophic. Every answer Sarah gives would become a news story. Every hesitation or deflection would generate speculation. Every detail she reveals would invite follow-up questions Andrew has spent years avoiding. Sources familiar with the situation say Sarah sees this interview as her chance to rebuild her reputation. She reportedly believes she's innocent of wrongdoing and that the public has judged her unfairly. She apparently feels she was punished simply for being close to Andrew when the scandal erupted, rather than for any actions she personally took. This self-perception matters because it would shape how she approaches the interview. If she genuinely believes she's been treated unjustly, she might be more willing to speak candidly about others' behavior to contrast with her own. The reality is more complicated. Sarah relied heavily on Andrew for money, housing, and access to royal life. Even after their divorce, she continued living at Royal Lodge because Andrew's royal position allowed her to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford independently. The arrangement was mutually beneficial. She provided him with companionship and the appearance of family stability, while he provided her with financial support and social status. But with Andrew stripped of titles, Royal Lodge being taken away, and her income sources drying up, that arrangement no longer works. A controlled interview might be her way of repositioning herself as misunderstood rather than complicit, as naive rather than willing participant. The problem is that Sarah doesn't always stay controlled under pressure, which is exactly why producers are eager and the palace is terrified. If she sits down for this interview, palace insiders believe she'll insist she knew nothing about Epstein's crimes or Andrew's alleged behavior with Virginia Giuffre. She may portray herself as out of the loop, someone who trusted the wrong people, someone taken advantage of financially and socially. She might claim Andrew kept his private matters completely separate from her. She might admit she cultivated Epstein's friendship specifically because she needed money. She might strategically position herself as a victim of circumstance rather than a willing participant in maintaining problematic relationships. But professional interviewers won't simply accept these characterizations. They'll probe every answer. They'll challenge inconsistencies. They'll present documented evidence of her own statements and behavior. They'll ask about specific dates, specific meetings, specific financial transactions. This is exactly why her appearance could prove explosive. The tension between her desire to rehabilitate her image and the documented evidence that complicates any simple narrative. Reports suggest Andrew is deeply uncomfortable with this interview concept, and his reasons are obvious. New claims indicate he's recently demanded Sarah keep distance from him, despite them still sharing Royal Lodge. Insiders describe the atmosphere inside that 30-room property as tense, fractured, and cold. Andrew reportedly wants privacy and space as he attempts to manage fallout from congressional investigation, loss of titles, and the humiliation of being forced from his home. The last thing he needs is Sarah Ferguson walking into a television studio and placing additional pressure on him. A tell-all interview doesn't help Andrew in any scenario. It only pulls every scandal back into public consciousness. It raises new questions about the years he claims he barely knew Epstein, despite extensive documented contact. It gives Sarah a platform to present herself as innocent, loyal, or misled. Narratives that implicitly or explicitly cast Andrew's behavior in worse light by comparison. Every revelation she makes becomes a news cycle. Every claim she disputes invites verification. Every detail she confirms validates what investigators and journalists have been saying for years. This interview threatens to create a fresh crisis for the monarchy at exactly the moment they're trying to bury Andrew's scandals through silence and distancing. For King Charles, it represents another complication in a reign that's already been challenged by family drama and public skepticism. For Andrew, it risks reopening every wound he's tried to close through settlement, withdrawal from public life, and refusal to cooperate with investigations. The question now is whether Sarah will actually go through with it. Does she take the money and tell her story, knowing it might destroy whatever fragile relationship remains with the royal family? Does she calculate that she's already so excluded that she has nothing more to lose? Does she believe speaking out represents her only path to rehabilitation? Or does she ultimately decide that maintaining some connection to royal life, however tenuous, is worth more than any interview payment? Networks are waiting. Producers are preparing. The palace is watching nervously. And Sarah Ferguson is weighing her options while sitting in a mansion she'll reportedly be forced to leave, beside an ex-husband who allegedly wants distance from her, contemplating whether to speak publicly about everything she saw during decades inside one of the world's most secretive institutions. If this interview happens, it could prove to be one of the most explosive royal media events in modern history. Not because Sarah Ferguson is particularly important in the royal hierarchy. She hasn't been a working royal for over 30 years, but because she was there when it mattered, she saw what happened, and she might finally be desperate enough to say so publicly. That's what makes her dangerous. That's why networks are offering 6 figures. And that's why, whatever happens next, the palace cannot afford to ignore the possibility that she might actually do it. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.